Journey continues today on November 17th, 2024 at approximately 4:31 p.m. PST. Now I've returned to this world. Well, more to the point, I made it my life's journey to remind people that working together we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide my life by virtually every move I make by. Well, that came out well, didn't it? Now, with this in mind, okay, we are looking at today the ideology of colonization. It seems to be a big talking point at this point, but so many people don't really seem to understand the way it's going, at least not from what I've seen. Now, before we get into it, we do have Storm taking care of the backside of this in order to make sure we don't have problem children in here and to keep all technology running properly. And rest assured, in my case, that can be a bit of a problem. Okay, but he is doing a bang up job, so definitely hats off. Now, you scroll up here and we have Nathan is also one of our moderators here. Nathan is usually a little on the busy side, but he always keeps an eye out. If there is a problem, you can bet he'll jump in on it. Now, today is what is today? Sunday. I missed yesterday's show on Nathan's panel, but with the stress I've been under lately, unfortunately, it seems I'm tanking by about 9 o'clock Pacific time. Now, we do have Operation Shutdown. He's in here with the gold. How's it going, Operation? Glad you could join us. And Joe Stewart, you are in with the silver today. Nice to see you showing up. I take it things are as hectic as usual on the back end. In the graveyard behind you. Ever notice there, Joe? Just because it's a graveyard and you put a bunch of dead people in there does not mean that it's quiet. Or at least that it's not active. Now, when we start looking at the ideology of colonization, something we have to realize. First of all, I am not, if you will, shall we say, socially adept. I look at colonization and go, okay, if you're going to colonize, make sure the place isn't occupied to start with. Or at least the area you're moving into. Now, the reason I bring that up is because so many of the so-called big names are talking about colonizing Mars, calling it a dead planet, calling it an empty planet. Problem: Mars is occupied. Okay, now from my standpoint, if a place is occupied and you're moving in on it, this is not called colonization. The idea behind colonization, first of all, is to gain more room, more area to work with. But the sad part is so many people look at the idea and they go, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to colonize. We're going to spread out before they straighten out their own home. Okay, now, I'm going to point something out here. When you're aiming to change something, you have to turn around and take care of your stuff first. You'll notice I got a neat little thing here. I just brought in, oh, look at that. I just brought in another organizing tool for myself. Okay. And the reason for that is because if you're going to colonize, if you're going to go someplace and colonize it, it's imperative you have your own home taken care of. Okay, now I know that seems, and from what I've witnessed, that seems to be a bit odd. Most people seem to go the other direction. Let's move into another area, okay? And, we'll move into another area and see what we can do about expanding our connections, expanding our influence into another area. Problem: if your home is not running right and you expand into another area, you're going to end up with just an extension of the same problems. LA, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, you'll be happy to know, LA, first of all, I did just have a sandwich before, a peanut butter sandwich, well, peanut butter and honey, just before coming on here. That was why I cut it so tight. But I've already got ground hamburger ready to go into a rice pilaf. I'll end up making that right after the show. So yeah, I'm doing my level best to straighten things out on that end. And to stay on top of it. The biggest thing I'm looking at when we look at colonizing, moving into another area, usually people talk about colonization as in, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the whole 9 yards. And we'll move into another area. We'll make more stuff happen. Here's the problem, and I see this in this small little venue. You've got a business. Okay? You have a business. So we're going to grow that business into another outlet. If you don't have it planned out right, you're adding a stress that you don't really require. Okay? So many people get caught up in the idea of go big or go home. Now, I will tell you, there's all kinds of complications that go hand in hand with that. The first thing, and I'm hoping somebody out there gives a suggestion here, but let me ask you this. Who is the best person? And I don't mean the name. What is the one qualifier to decide who to put in a position of power, in a position of control? Who's the most desirable individual? Or more to the point, what is the quality in your eyes that identifies the most viable option for putting somebody into a position of power? And yes, before the end of this stream, in all likelihood, probably in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I will give you the answer. But I'm hoping somebody out there gambles a gauge on it. Okay, like I said, I have long for almost a decade, I've been working on spaced out radio. I have always found it easier to interact. When I've got feedback. And sadly, lately, this has not been happening, and that's okay. I figured out that doesn't matter because it does matter. I still prefer the interaction. Joe, I am so happy to hear that. And this is going to sound really bad. Joe goes, the voices are coming back. And here I am telling you, Joe, I'm glad you're hearing voices again. Most people, when you tell them, oh, I'm hearing voices, oh my gosh, you're nuts. You need psychiatric help. And I'm sitting there going, well, why do you need psychiatric help to hear voices? He's already got down to a fine art. That's actually a very good quality, LA. LA goes, the person who listens and takes things in. Okay. Now, any other ideas on that? Because I'm still looking at it like that is one of those qualifiers that absolutely is a necessary component of who to turn control over to. There's one that comes in ahead of that I'm aware of. But if the person you're putting in power does not listen, you're not going to have the outcome that they've talked about. Okay, the reality of it is this. When somebody is in a position of power, if they're not listening to you, then they're not working for you. They're working for them. This is something to keep in mind. Okay, and it may not be what you want to hear, may not be what you desire to hear. But the moment you desire me to start lying to you to make you feel better, let me know. I can end the stream anytime. The sad reality of it is this. I refuse to lie to people to make them feel better. I have neglected to tell people things to avoid stress, and kind of have to do that if I don't desire to die anytime soon. There's a lot of change happening, a lot of things going on in my life, and I'm looking at it this way. Okay, I've got my office sorted out for the most part. Okay, by the way, that basket sitting there, whoops, this basket right here, I've had a fan sitting on for the longest time just to keep things good, to keep things running smoothly, keep things cool. Okay, when you're looking at colonizing, looking at straightening your own home or your own business out, they have the same quality. Okay, they all have this one thing in common. If you don't have the home running, if you don't have the office running properly, taking care of the next room may not run smoothly may not move smoothly there either. When we look at colonizing, okay, here's a neat little trick. Take a look at what you're sitting with at the society, at the company, at the group of people that you're dealing with. Ask yourself this: are they doing things in an organized fashion? Are they making headway? I'm laying odds the answer is no. Okay, but when we look at colonizing, yes, you've got to reach out. Now, I'll tell you this. Here's the thing. I told you I wouldn't leave it hang too long. The top quality of the person that you desire to put in a position of power, okay, is the one that doesn't desire it. Okay, now if you're looking at running the country, oh, there we go. Where are we? Joe's just going, all I hear is, hey, hey, but I have to slow down and just pause for a few moments to hear what they want. It's just me and my parents here, and it is hectic, but I do my best. Well, that's a funny thing. For those of you my age, like I'm 61, some of you will remember the normal 33 LPs. When you put them on a 78, all of a sudden you couldn't understand what they were saying. Where it comes to hearing voices from beyond the veil, you've got to slow the speech down, and all you do there is thank them for slowing the speech down so that you can understand what they're hearing, what they're saying. Okay, all you're doing is slowing the speed of the words down. They don't have to scream more. They don't have to talk louder. It's just required they slow their speech down. Okay, now, I have, the reality of it is this. I have figured out a lot of things about watching the way people are colonizing. Now, let's go back. I don't know. I think it was in the 1700s, maybe the 1600s, when the British Commonwealth started dropping people off in Australia. They took the undesired people and dropped them off in Australia. Now, here's the kicker. Those people came from very rough backgrounds. And for those of you in Australia, where are we? Renee, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And I do have to double check something here. We have gold, we have silver. And Renee, you are apparently in with the bronze. How's it going? Thing is, Joe, especially in your case, as long as they're amicable, can't work with what you can. But, when we look at the colonization of Australia, the British Commonwealth, we're talking, I think, 400 years ago ish, started dropping the undesirables, the murderers, the thieves. By societal standards, they took the bottom of the barrel and threw it onto an island and left them there. Okay, now I don't know how the whole thing went. What I do know is that there are a staggering number of people, okay, a staggering number of people in Australia that are phenomenally gifted, really nice people. Okay, so if you take a look at the ancestry and the family tree they came from, for these people to turn out as amicable and friendly as they are, says something for their upbringing. Now let me ask you this. In your community, are people working together? Or are you still fighting to figure out who gets credit? Colonization requires cooperation and communication. It is absolutely imperative. And the thing is, anytime you're building a society, you've got to take into consideration two big things. One, the laws have to apply to everybody. If they do not, then you will end up with a secondary society underneath. It'll fracture. And that result, you've got the government that you put in place and a secondary one. But here's the kicker. If your society starts to fracture because the laws are not equal, you will end up with two communities, two sets of rules. Okay? If the new society does not have stable laws that apply to everybody, okay, that society will fracture again. Same problem arises when you start taking people and trying to colonize a planet, okay, or try opening a new business. And I do deliberately use the word try because if you're not focused on it, it will fracture. But the best person to put in a position of power is the one that doesn't desire the power, because that's the one that will delegate authority and responsibility to other people and will not sit there going, it has to be done my way. Okay. And this is all the whole neat little thing about it. From my standpoint, when you look at the whole concept of colonization, if you take one person and they go, I'm running it, it all has to be done this way. If, as LA put it, if they do not keep an open mind, okay, and listen to what the other people are saying, they cannot run the colony effectively. The same thing applies. The same thing applies to a business. When you go to pick a manager, pick the one that has an open mind, is willing to listen, and doesn't want the job. Okay, that's the one. Now make sure that one other little quality. Let's assume for a moment they don't like the job or they don't desire it. Make sure they can still do it. Okay, it is critical that we keep this in mind. And as the society continues to grow, we got to remember, okay, people are propagating all this stuff about war and, there's war, there's murder, there's famine, there's all this shortage. We still have a population that is growing, okay? And unless we start taking that into consideration and really turn things back around to say, okay, here's what we're doing to move forward. Unless we do that, we're going to run into the Dark Ages again. Now, let me ask you this. Do any of you remember what the Dark Ages were? Or more to the point, what the Dark Ages were like? Not what they were. Okay, because it's a question of being aware of where your society came from in order to ensure that it stays on the right track. Now, I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. Okay. And as I was telling my little brother today, yes, I dug myself into a crater. Okay. Financially speaking, I am working very diligently to correct that. Okay. But thus far, it's still a royal pain in the neck. Now, yes, I've put a lot of money into other people's houses to try and help them. Sadly, I did it to my own detriment. Okay. Now, where I'm going from here is I'm taking all of this stuff you see around me, and I'm going to start eliminating the stuff I don't require. Now, why therefore did I pick this up? And I gotta check something odd with it. I'm going to have to sort something out there. Oh, that's cute. Definitely going to have to go through it. This desk, well, dresser. I picked it up. I got it for free, right? But it's got an extra 9 drawers in it to organize things. And this is what I'm looking at. To take what I'm working on and make it and organize it so the energy flows right. Okay, I don't have a lot of room here, but I'm working with what I got, and that's what you got to do. It's also what has to be considered in colonizing. Now, of course, when you're looking at colonization, what's the first thing before you ever get to the colonizing point? What's the first thing that you can think of that has to be organized? Okay, and this is why. Whoa, how you doing? Glad you could join us. This is why I say there is a very definitive ideology on the concept of colonization. Okay, that ideology is people don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. Now, I took it when we look at colonization. Ask yourself this: we're going to reach out into a new area. Okay, now here's just a thought. Right now, I've got a lot of books up for sale. Okay, I am working on getting the advertising sorted around for them. But colonization, another word for that, is expansion. Now, my company, Inner Voice Enterprises, 90% of the work, well, let me put it this way, most of the writing I do, but I have other people working on different aspects. But when you're looking at expanding your influence, okay, let me ask you this. What is one of the first things that you've got to decide? Now, I'm looking at this. Oh, Wu is going, the power structure between race. How do most alien races decide? Now, this is one of those things, Wu. By the way, happy Sunday to you as well. This is one of those questions where I'm going to have to directly ask you to rephrase it because there's too many holes for me to fill in. Okay. But in a nutshell, I can tell you this. First and foremost, when you're looking at the infrastructure of another race, okay, and this is why I'm asking the question the way I am. They have to make the same decisions. But what's the first thing they've got to figure out? You're going to laugh, and well, you may laugh when you find out what it is. Okay, now I will tell you there are different societies that do different things. Okay, one of the biggest things I will tell you is I know of a couple of races that the way you rise in political rank is you eat your opponent. Okay, the theory being the consumption of the opponent will transfer that knowledge to your body. And in all fairness, it's not really that far off the beaten track. However, before you jump that way, humans on the whole are not cannibals. And therefore, cannibalism is definitively a lousy way to gain the upper hand. But the reality of it is this. You've got to pick, and this is why I'm waiting for somebody to come up with an answer. And the reason for that is because, honestly, in a nutshell, I can sit and talk to myself until the cows come home, which ought to be neat considering I live in an urban area, not a rural one. But I can look at what's going on around me, and I can just focus on that without having to say a word. Okay, the difference in this case is I am literally following through with what I'm telling people. Okay, and yes, I have dealt with, if you look at the numbers that I've been working with, I have consulted in excess of 100,000 people. And with that number in mind, over 30,000 of those were business people, including ones interested in colonizing. Okay. Anytime you're expanding your area of influence, it's very similar in a lot of ways. Okay, I appreciate that, Woo. I think it's very similar in a lot of ways to the way that people on the whole interact. Now, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to take a look at that question you've got there for Woo. I'm going to put it this way. Woo Rider asked, the power structure between race. How do most alien race decide? Okay, well, here's the thing. First and foremost, okay, the one thing that you've got to decide is do you personally desire to expand your influence? Okay, if the answer is no, quit pushing for it. Ignore everybody that says you have to. Even in my case, like I've been told by a lot of people, I'm bringing forth a very important message. But the moment I go, it's no longer worth it to me, that's the day I close. Even given so many people telling me I've got a message that's very important. I will tell you, every time I look at it, what am I doing here? Every time I look at it, there are people that have put a staggering amount of effort in, okay, to trying to make things happen. There are a staggering number of people that have literally put their life on hold to help get this message out. But the first question you got to ask, before you even start looking to expand anywhere, ask yourself, do I desire to expand? Do I desire to make an impact? In my case, the answer is yes. But the problem there is, in my case, if I don't have feedback, honestly, it feels very difficult. It gets very difficult to move forward. Okay? Because all I'm doing, I know this world is in trouble. What I don't know is what you as individuals see as a problem. Now, I've been way too analytical on my own part for far too long. And sometimes I get really caught up in that. Matter of fact, most of the time I do. What you've got to figure out as an individual is the message or the project you've got. First and foremost, do you desire to get it to grow? Do you desire to have that business reach more people? Do you desire to generate a viable income off it? Okay, now I can tell you this. There's no way I'm going back to work for somebody else. I frankly don't understand the way people are, the poor way so many people are treating each other. So, when we look at how other races do it, sticking to one species to start with, okay, as in the human species, or the Strazosians, or the Reticulans, when you look at the whole group and you go, okay, that species, number one, the other races have already figured this out. And rest assured, some of them took a lot of talking to. So if you're not getting it right way and right away, not to worry. Okay, I've been telling this to people for decades, but you desire your world to start working right. First things first. You decide if you desire it to expand. If you do, okay, then when you're looking at that side of it, ask yourself, of the people you've got access to, that you trust to give you a hand, bear in mind, you're the one that's got the template down. You're the one that figured out what you're trying to do. But I will tell you, doing everything on your own, you're completely hooked on for the most part. Okay, this is just a sad reality of it. Now, there is no way I'm going to be able to effectively learn to handle a computer with the same degree of skill or even a comparable one, okay, as Storm. So with this in mind, I look to Storm to handle the computer side of things. But when you go to put somebody in a position of power, like in my case, I go Storm offered, and I said, yeah, absolutely, take care of that side. Now, technically, Storm could go into my computer. Okay, like I let him in to work on software and what have you. Technically, Storm could get in there once I open the door and wipe my entire hard drive. He could do that. I know for a certainty he won't. Okay. Yo, yeah, Joe just adding here. The best possible thing that I can come up with was in the backyard at night. The possible tail-on landing. My 2 cents, that's how I know. And that's how I know on my own there is other life. Okay, now, when you are going to turn control over to somebody, the next thing you gotta do after you figure out you desire to expand your influence to this area out here, find somebody to handle the majority of it. Okay, find people to put into positions of power that you know will follow the guidelines you put out. I've got an image in my head. Okay, and there's an old song from back in the 60s or the 70s. Okay, that started with, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Well, the reality of it is, I'm not a singer. Okay, you want to hear my singing, that's no problem. Grab a set of nails up against an old-fashioned blackboard and scrape them down it. Then you'll get an idea what my voice is like. But you have to pick people that you trust to follow your guidelines and to do what is necessary. But the funny part is you could have a lot of people lined up. The one you really desire in the seat of control is, guess which one? The one that doesn't desire the job. That's the one you put in there. Okay, the one that doesn't desire the job but is qualified to do it. If you follow that line of thinking, you'll have somebody in a control seat that knows how to handle the control, doesn't want it, and therefore will delegate it or spread the options about to other people. Okay, this is just the reality of it. So you pick somebody that has told you flat out, yeah, they're capable of it, or they may be capable. But with that in mind, turn to the one that literally does not desire the job. Now, do not draft them into it. Okay? Take them if they're voluntarily going to step in spite of their own misgivings. Okay? This is a critical factor. Now, I am very curious why. See, I move my head, and the whole 9 yards just kind of edges along behind me. I see. I'm right now seeing a bit of a shockwave. I don't know why. I know it's not a problem with my sugar. Blood pressure's fine. I think. Don't mind me just doing a system scan. Now, one of the things we have to realize when you're looking at colonizing, you've got to break things down into compartments. Okay, and again, this neat little idea of a list will help immensely in getting things organized. I'm not impressed with my system, I mean. So I will do what I can from that end. See if that helps. Trick is getting an airflow. Okay, we are going to run into a problem, I suspect. Wasn't planning on this today, but interesting. Anyway, I would not be expecting to run 2 hours, but we'll see what happens. Okay, the thing we have to remember when you're looking at moving things forward, you've got to decide, first and foremost, who's going to be in control. Okay, I strongly suggest that you find people that don't desire to be there, but are capable of being there. Okay, if you put people in that are pushing, let me run it. Trust your instincts. The people that push for it, more often than not, cause an added complication. Now you gotta remember, Storm in LA stepped up and said, we're offering. They did not come to me and go, let me do it. Okay, they turned around and offered. Really? Now, with that in mind, you figure out, do you desire to grow? Now, when we start talking about the colonization of things and the expansion of your influence, you gotta have the backbone in place. And where is the backbone of any business, any endeavor? The backbone is invariably in the office itself. That's where the brain of any operation sits. And if you don't have that under control, when you expand, you're going to take your resources and stretch them far too thin and end up with bigger problems. For instance, one of the things with colonization is you got to make certain that the people going out there, yes, have the material and or the wherewithal to build shelter. Okay, in the case of an expanding business, you've got to have the wherewithal to control the energy flow. If you don't, it's going to be like a village getting hit with a tsunami. The outcome is not pretty. Okay, that's the biggest thing you got to look at from that end. And again, you break it down into smaller component parts. I wonder if I've got this over here. I don't know if I do, in all fairness. Let me see. Not those. No, I laid something out a little while ago where I put together a whole list of things quantifying a corporation superstructure. Corporation business, same idea. You have to have guidelines that are equally imperative to everybody. Okay, you've got to have things worked out on that end. Joe, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You know, the thing is, the mentality and literally the ideology of colonization is this: find a way to add your influence to what's going on, because the reality of it is, working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it's going to take effort. It's going to take work. Okay, yes, I am getting up and moving around. But the reason for that is something's a little off kilter. I actually talked to my little brother today and told him that things are very off kilter with where it's all sitting. Okay, when you desire for your life to change, picture the idea of you've got your house, you got your apartment. That's where you start. Now, to enhance the energy flow in your own place, in, if you will, your own colony, you've got to decide: are you going to put the effort in yourself, or are you going to point the finger at anybody else and go, it's your fault? Okay, you look at the financial situation I'm facing. It was done by me. It has been amplified by true ignorance on my part, as in I didn't know the right questions to ask, and by the actions of other people. Now, the neat thing, when we go back to Wu Rider's question here, when you're dealing with multiple races, whoever is getting put into a power position, okay, and by the way, this applies on Earth as well. The races on Earth being Caucasian, African, Oriental, okay, First Nations. These are all different races of the human species. But in order for somebody to guide this into a healthy environment, that individual has to look at everybody as an equal. Now, yes, some people are more qualified to do certain jobs. Those are the ones you put in those jobs. You don't put a baker, a professional baker, into the position of being an auto mechanic. It's not going to end well. Okay, it really isn't. But it can be guided to end well. And one of the things we got to realize is whatever you're aiming at building, I'm myself with Inner Voice Enterprises, I'm aiming to get global coverage. And thanks for pointing that out quite some time back there, Joe Stewart. We already are global, as in we already reach into Australia, which is on the other side of the world. Both the way it's both. Well, let me put it this way: we're in the northwestern hemisphere. Australia is in the southeastern. Okay, you don't get much further apart. But with this in mind, when you're looking at changing the way your life is going, take a look at where the energy is flowing. Make sure you're altering the energy flow to something more compatible with what you're actually aiming for. Okay, there are a lot of differences on this planet, but the fact of the matter is, when we decide, okay, we've had enough of the conflict, let's put the guns down, put the rocks down, put the angry words away, and start looking for ways to enhance things, to make the connection better. Okay, what would you do if I told you that 50,000 years ago we had over 10 billion people on the planet, and of those 10 billion people, okay, none of them suffered from none of them suffered from starvation, from greed, from petty politics. It was literally heaven on earth. Now, I don't expect you to take my word for it. And going back and looking up the Lemurian Empire may be a bit of a problem because the Lemurian people that got the idea, they got it straight, took an extra step. They pulled all their friends, all their relatives together, all the ones that were of a similar mind, got up and left the planet. Okay, they colonized Mobius on the other side of the sun in exactly the same orbit as Earth. Okay, and this is where things have to change. Rachel, I did not see you come in. Glad you could join us. Hopefully your day is going well. Now, I am putting together a whole pile of lists of information, not the least of which, and I'll be tying this off tonight, is I'm going to write a letter so that when I get the next person phoning me up going, oh, you owe this much money, I can look at them and go, yep, and here's what I've done to try and accommodate that. But you never held up your end of the bargain, so I don't have any money. I'm keeping a roof over my head. And there is a very specific way I'm going to be laying that out for these people. But understand, I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your bills. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. But I will tell you, these people have all become back burner because I'm keeping a roof over my head, over my kids' head, just simply because that's what I desire to pull. You know, as the saying goes, I was kind of instrumental in bringing them into this world. It's only fair I give them the tools to operate inside this world. Right now, that's beyond my capacity, so I'm surrounding myself with people that can do something about it. Now, on that little note, I'm going to go because I don't have any water here. So I'm going to go and grab that. I will be right back.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we are back. Like I said, we have an interesting little problem. Because the level my stress level has been sitting at has been something bizarre. Where are we here? Oh, there we are. Okay. Okay, Joe, I'm just catching up here. Where are we here? Joe, well, here's a couple of things. One, I don't know the system itself myself all that well, but I'm reading here. It says you would like to link the weird scalp marks you had on your leg. If you don't have my address, I think you do, but drop me an email with the picture of it, and I'll take a look at them. Okay, and I'll certainly give you a response as best I can. But that email is innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca. Okay, drop me a line with the picture. Okay, and I will take a look at them and see if I can pin it down. Bear in mind, if they are in fact scalpel marks, there's a lot of people that use scalpels. The scalpels don't always look the same. Yeah, and LA, thank you so much for that, explaining that to the listeners. Okay. Because the reality is there have been way too many companies that turn around, way too many individuals as well, that turn around and hijack a site for their own use. There we go. Thank you so much, LA. Now, what do we got here? Cowie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And we also have, where are we here? Scroll that down half a moment. And Lunar, long time no see, I think. Okay, things have been a little screwy on my end, so if you have been in before, thank you very much for sharing your time with us. Okay, now the neat part about it, when we start looking at literally the ideology of colonization, you got to look at it. It would be wise to look at it from the idea of why are you looking at expanding? Okay, and before you jump on that, expanding for the money is a bad motivator. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. At least not the way you'd like it to. The neat part about it, I wonder, do we have... No, not that. Let me just see. We go refresh there. Okay, I'll have to look at that in a little while. But the reality of it is this. Ask yourself, why are you striving to expand? In my case, it's pretty cut and dry. Okay. When you look at that, why are you trying to expand? If you are expanding to improve your finances, I'm telling you, it's a bad idea. I mean, don't get me wrong. Finances are necessary in this world, and I really should have paid attention to them more earlier. Okay, but the kicker of it is this. When money becomes your motivating factor, it is real easy to punch a hole in it. When your motivating factor is, such as what I'm working with, the idea that passing on this word, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. The side effects can be extremely beneficial. Did I lose a light bulb? More to the point, I think I'm losing a light bulb. But we'll see what happens. It's either I'm losing a light bulb or somebody's playing havoc with the energy flow. When we take a look at what your life is doing, now, most people talk about colonization as in, I'm going to go to a different planet. How about this one? When you start comparing those qualities to, I'm going to change my life, okay, when you start putting things in place, figure out what you're not content with. Absolutely talk to people that have got things moving in the right fashion. Okay, that have done what you're aiming for, and that have done it successfully before, no matter what their age. Okay, people have gone through things, that they may not realize how they did it. But what we are now currently looking at is an interesting setup. Okay. Okay. I am going to have to do this because I'm going to end up passed out here or something to that effect. Maybe. I'm going to check something while I'm on air. If I pass out, this is a bad thing. But, take a look at this. Like I said, I keep an eye on things just because if they feel off and I don't deal with them right, I end up with a very big problem. Now, it may well be entertaining to watch me drop dead on air, but I'm thinking this may not go over well in the long run. So I'm just going to look at it this way and see what I'm dealing with. Neat part is, I've got a blood pressure machine here. Okay, and I figure if I handle that properly, it'll tell me where I'm standing. Well, that's a good sign. Oh, there you go. I gotta ask, it says here. Oh, I'm betting that is. Oh, heck, my blood. This is the problem. I can feel something off. Okay. I can feel something off, but I will tell you, it's right now, my blood pressure is 131 over 88. Pulse is a little high, but I've been up and about. But here's the kicker. I appreciate the concern there, Cowie. I don't know what the entire one is, but I will tell you this. The doctors come here. Here's what happens. Number one, they'll check my blood pressure, and they'll check my pulse and go, nope, it's not, you're not in danger, right? Because they can't track the way my system actually works. Where are we? So like I said, my pulse is a little high. It's 106, which, when you're sitting down, that's a little on the high side. But blood pressure itself is fine. I'm just taking a second reading. This is what's called live. Like I said, I'm not about to lie to you guys to make you feel better. But, what do we got? Just waiting for the thing to finish the cycle. I'm not going to drop dead today. Okay, I told my kids I wouldn't do that. I would let them make it through. Well, as my eldest put it, he goes, Yo, Dad, I know you've been having trouble, but do me a favor and don't die before I graduate. Well, that is entertaining. Okay, that was better. Last reading, the reason I all of a sudden stopped was it was a little high. Oh, there we go. Joe's going, I had 175 over 96 last night. Yeah, mine jumped just a minute ago to 141 over 121. Not a real good combination, so I took the second reading at 137 over 85 with 91 pulse. I've already brought my pulse down by 15 points, and I haven't done much. So, the nice little part about it is this. My system works quite well, but the reality of it is it doesn't work the way the doctors are going to know. I'm just every now and again I get a little wound. I know why. But when we look at the ideology of colonization, it's the same ideology for business expansion and for enhanced prosperity. Know why you're doing it. That's first and foremost. Now, it doesn't have to be a well-defined plan. All you got to figure out is a baseline. What is the backbone of your purpose? In my case, what are we? Yeah, Joe says, could it be paranormal as well? In my world, that's just plain normal. Okay, it happens. Things are such a weird setup around me. It just becomes a normal problem. Yeah, it's pretty much all over the place. But on the plus side, I've got no numbness in any of my limbs. And, on top of that, I've got no pain in my heart at all. So the fact it's a little off kilter doesn't really create a big complication. When we start looking at the ideology boils down to your thinking behind whether you're looking at colonizing a planet, enhancing your reach into the marketing of the material world, or simply modifying your own home. The ideology is still the same. One, decide. Do you desire to enhance the way your life is running? Two, how big of an impact are you actually looking at making? Maybe your idea of colonizing simply boils down to getting a foothold on an island. Okay, just remember, colonization means people don't already live there. Okay, ultimately that's what you're looking at, especially when you're looking at interplanetary. When you start going, I'm going to land here and I'm going to take over. When you're making that decision, that's called invasion. Now, I'm looking at Inner Voice Enterprises going, okay, what can I do? Now, let me ask you this. We know I've got Positive Perspectives out. I've got, which is the magazine. I've got Positive Perceptions out, which is the news, the live stream here. And I've got a lot of different books on the go. In your eyes, okay, Absolutely, any ideas regarding marketing will certainly be appreciated. It's like when you're looking at colonizing. Talk to the people that you can get involved and see what they have to add, because I'll tell you, you're not going to think of everything. Okay. Yeah, that's the part the doctors don't get. Is they tell me I've got all these kinds of problems, and yet they can't do a thing with it. But I appreciate the concern of all you out there. I'm not going to drop dead anytime soon. At least not permanently. But what we are looking at is what is not working for you. Why are you looking at changing? Or are you looking at changing, first of all? Okay? And I will tell you, if you're not content where you're living, but your landlord is still a decent individual, he could be the best person on the world, on the planet. If you're not happy where you're living, it's time to look and start looking elsewhere. But make certain you think things through. This is kind of an important factor. Do I have... No. One of the biggest things when we talk about colonization, we are talking about not only expanding your reach, but as you reach out, you're going to meet other people. And communication is going to become a critical issue. Okay? Because if you're not paying attention to that side of it, if you're not paying attention to what other people are feeling, you're going to inadvertently, in all likelihood, step on other people's toes. This is not going to end well. Okay? Now, I'm simply going to do this. And I probably, it would have been nice if it didn't work this way, but I keep feeling a little off kilter. So, I'm going to say call this early tonight. Hopefully that doesn't bother too terribly many people. I'm not going to die anytime soon. But I'm going to pick this up again tomorrow. Okay, we're going to end up with going the idea and the ideology of colonization, part 2 tomorrow. But I'm not pushing this any further. With that in mind, guys, thanks so much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow, assuming I don't drop dead. Okay, but until then, do take care of yourselves.